Let's get back to the sport, people. 2:22 time, and it is time. Watto. Mark Watson, international broadcaster of much acclaim and experience, a man with opinions, which is why we love talking sport. And I got many issues, mate. The Black Caps are going back for the Boxing Day Melbourne Test, but it's not for 3 years. There's a title race going on in the EPL, and you're going to talk up your Scousers, your chance. Why the hell can't the Phoenix draw any kind of a crowd here in Auckland? It was a great day out on Saturday, the doubleheader at Go Media Stadium. Madge Maguire cannot coach both the Kiwis and Origin. Your thoughts on that? And also Phil Hughes, the anniversary of his death yesterday, 2014 it was, such a long time ago, and what has changed with Australian cricket?
Apologise to me!
Let us start, though, on cricket and the Boxing Day Test. Look, I'm excited about this, but it's 3 years away. I've just been reading the saturation media coverage about it, thinking, hang on a second, what else do you plan for, you people, that is 3 years away? 3 years. I mean, there's actually another FIFA World Cup takes place before then. I mean, the Rugby World Cup's going to come around. That's actually not so long after that as well. And every time we go to Australia, the other thing is, get real, people. You know what happens over there. Last time we fielded every single day of every single test, and we lost them by about 1,000 runs each, mate.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's the pinnacle of test match cricket, isn't it? And I've always said this, that, I think that New Zealand cricket have always been really the great underachievers of New Zealand sport. They are our number 2 sport. They dominate the summer. And we've talked about having made some Cricket World Cup finals, and they've provided us some wonderful moments, but they still actually haven't done the ultimate. I said a couple of weeks ago that, I felt like the highlight for me with New Zealand cricket was the Test series win over Australia in 1985. Now, we probably should have won the Boxing Day Test, 86, 87.
Yes.
Mike Whitney, we know the history around the umpiring that day, and Hadley and Danny Morrison, etc. And that was just, playing against 13 men. Look, what we actually have to do now is we've got 3 years. We need to treat this like our Olympic Games. That should be the focus for this New Zealand cricket team. This should be about what happens in 3 years from now. We've got to make sure when we go over there, we're not going over there a week before because we're playing England in December. We've got to make sure we go over there 3 weeks before. We've got to make sure we get plenty of matches in the build-up to it, play on similar types of wickets and similar type environments, play in Brisbane on bouncy wickets like you're going to get at the Gabba, then go and make sure that we're playing on wickets that the MCG is going to produce. And we actually need to go over there and win. And if we can win and we can beat Australia, we won't have to wait 8 years to get a return fixture. We'll get to every 2, every 3, every 4 years. And so we've been our worst enemy, haven't we? We've been given opportunities and we just simply haven't taken them. And the last Boxing Day Test was case in point. We were woeful. But then, as I said, we had no real build-up. We had no real preparation for it. I think we did have England over here at the time. And so I think that's where we've got to shift. The Olympics for our cricket team should be the Boxing Day Test. That's what we should be looking for. That should be the pinnacle. That should be that legacy moment for all of the players, Martin.
Speaking of cricket, 2014, yesterday, Phillip Hughes died 2 days after being hit in the head with a bouncer. And if you remember the outpouring, it was worldwide in terms of everyone who loved cricket. It was such a tragedy, such a sad event. But the Australian cricketers themselves milked this. And I will say that now, because on reflection, I spent a lot of time yesterday going back, looking at all the tearful interviews with Michael Clarke and everyone else. We're going to change. We're not going to be like that anymore. And then just a couple of weeks ago, we get that buffhead Simon O'Donnell talking about, how soft the Black Caps were because they picked up Kohli's bat. You saw David Warner spitting and gobbing at one of the umpires, the sandpaper and everything. Has anything really changed with that team? I don't think it has it?
No, look, I think Michael Clarke, you heard the eulogy that he did, and I thought it was, it was a great eulogy, but it was incredibly disingenuous when you look back and reflect on it, Martin, and talking about the spirit of the game and and there was an international outpouring. It was incredibly sad for Phillip Hughes. Nobody deserves to lose their life in that manner, and such a wonderful cricketing protege. But yeah, you would have thought the message came out of it would be about celebration, would be about the spirit of the game. And that's what they talked about. But look, it's just in their DNA. You'll hear me say it a whole lot of times, but this is a country who, in all honesty, are just nasty by nature when it comes to cricket. We saw Sandpaper Gate. We saw the situation this year in the Ashes where, as I say, they are legally correct but so morally corrupt. They just cannot do anything with any sort of level of dignity, decorum. But in saying that, they are successful, aren't they? They still find a way of winning, but they don't bring a lot of class to it. And so when you look back and go, have they lived up to what they've said? Have they really remembered Phillip Hughes, other than maybe milking it for their own selfish needs and trying to show some level of empathy? No, they haven't. And I think that's incredibly sad. And, don't say it if you don't mean it. And I'm not sure if anything will ever change in Australian cricket. I think it's inherent. I think it's, I think it's just generational, and it started with the Chappells in the 1970s. Michael Clarke continued it. We've got the current crop of players who continue to do it again. But, as I said, you look at likes of Chopper Reid in Australia, it doesn't surprise you that people like that are considered national heroes.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? They do celebrate, and they do celebrate their meanness and, winning, and I admire that about them, but it's hard to admire anything else about them.
Apologise to me!
Madge Maguire chooses Origin over the Kiwis. Are you a bit surprised? And do we need a New Zealander coaching our National League team?
No, we don't need a New Zealander coaching our National League team, because it's that situation of who. I think you can do both jobs. I mean, I don't blame him for wanting to take the State of Origin job. Let's not kid ourselves. State of Origin is the biggest product in rugby league. Let's not even pretend. I think he can clearly do both jobs. I think New Zealand Rugby League have done this purely to save costs. We don't really have a great international calendar to look forward to in the weeks in the year coming. And, somewhat of a surprise, incredibly successful. I'm not really sure what the rationale from New Zealand Rugby League is, but just comes back to money. And we should have found a way to accommodate his needs. I just think it's another brick bat for New Zealand Rugby League, and I think just goes down a long line of just poor administration when it comes to rugby league as a whole in this country, if you look back over the last 100 years.
I sit there and I look, and we had Greg Peters on the program yesterday, NZRL CEO, and, saying all the right things about how they want to prioritise international league and everything else, but look, I mean, these are all just words, and they're very hollow, because unless you can get Australia on side, and that is New South Wales Rugby League and Queensland Rugby League, well, nothing will ever change. And the thing is, as long as that product continues to grow, it continues to attract the numbers and the advertising that it does, it is just the spanner in the wheel of the international game, isn't it? Because they have a license to sign whatever young player they want. They can offer them the riches and the glamour of that competition. And the reality of it is even a Rugby League World Cup every 4 years just doesn't compare. The players want to play Origin, Mark, and that's the point.
Oh, they do, and we as fans want to watch State of Origin. We've got no real affiliation with it, but we understand the NRL, and we all have an interest. We all have a side, don't we? A little bit like English Premier League football, and it is what it is. And I'm not sure what the solution is, how we do get Australia on board, how we can bring back the magic. I mean, every opportunity we get against Australia, we've got to beat them. No different than trying to win the Boxing Day Test in cricket. If we want Australia to wake up, if we want to take international rugby league, the way we've got to do is shift it and say, well, you're not the best rugby league nation in the world. We are. You think your Origin's the best rugby league player, best rugby league in the world, where you've combined those two teams, you've called them a kangaroos, but this team called New Zealand are consistently beating you. And once we start doing that, then we do get a shift in power. But I just wonder whether the answer is, let's just start playing more regular tests against England or Great Britain, go back to the Great Britain model, and just let Australia then look at the rest of us playing international rugby league. But yeah, I mean, does anyone seriously blame Maguire for taking Origin? I mean, it's only a 1-year contract, isn't it? So there's a risk associated with that. But you do just feel that New South Wales are on the cusp of probably winning a series. So the timing's probably right for him.
Apologise to me!
Why can't the Phoenix draw a crowd in Auckland? I went on Saturday to Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart Stadium, double header, great occasion, really nice weather, two good teams playing, a couple of good games of footy. And what does that mean for the new A-League franchise side? In my mind, what it means is that they're going to really struggle, just like the Kings, Football Kings, just like the Football Knights did, and just like the Phoenix do in Wellington. 6,000 is their average crowd, Mark. A couple of years ago when the threat was that the licence was going to take off, it was like Campbell Live. All of a sudden, all the viewers came flocking back, didn't they, saying, please leave it on the TV, please leave the Phoenix in Wellington. But then, once again, after all that drama subsides, you get what it is, and that's 5,000 or 6,000 people turning up in Auckland to watch a game of professional football, despite the fact Eden Park's sold out for the World Cup. And where are all the mainstream media about this? I thought they were ramming down our throats that, we all have to go out there and support women's sport. Well, the women's team played again. Where are the crowds to watch this?
Well, they're not there. Where were they to watch the Kiwis beat Australia in League? Where are they for Super Rugby? I'm just not sure. As I said, I think we've just moved on from a nation of rugby, racing and beer. But the reality is, look, if you're a football fan, you're an English Premier League fan, you watch that level of football, you take an interest in that. And the reality is the A-League is a major step down in terms of quality of football, and the women's game's even worse. And that's just the harsh reality of it. But the Phoenix, like anything, if you want to get crowds, you've got to win. You've got to create a legacy, and they haven't done that. Every season is just a mirror of the season before. The almost team, make a playoffs, which is not that difficult to make when you look at the number of teams in the competition and how many go through. But the reality is, man, it's just not a very good quality of football. These players are not household names. They're not even ranked in the top 30 or 40 in their position globally, are they? So why should we take an interest in it? The Auckland franchise won't work here unless you take it to a really small boutique ground of maybe a 5 or 10,000 seat capacity, create an atmosphere, and do something a little bit like, say, what the Breakers have done, and put it in a controlled environment where you know exactly how the entertainment works in and around the game. But look, Eden Park's, I think, is always going to be an issue. I think the Auckland franchise is going to struggle. I just don't think people in Auckland are that interested in it. If Liverpool, Manchester United turned up, you'd sell Eden Park out. You could charge $200 or $300 a ticket, you'd still sell it out. That's just the harsh reality of it. I'm a football fan. I've only got so much time. I'm going to dedicate my time to watching the English Premier League, whether I watch it live or whether I sit down the next day through Sky and ultimately just watch the highlights or a replay of the entire match. But look, I remember a few years ago, and I did get the figures from Sky Television. They were lucky to get 1,000 viewers watching some Wellington Phoenix games. So, if they want to draw crowds, go and win the A-League.
Well, let's talk football to finish with. We're back, baby. Garnacho scored one of the greatest goals the Premier League's ever seen. Say it out loud, man. You fear the red side of Manchester again, don't you, Watto?
I watched that Garnacho. I thought, yep, he's probably good enough to make the Liverpool bench in time.
What a song.
It was one of the great goals, wasn't it? And good on him for having a crack at it too, because we all want to see the box office, don't we? We all want to see the highlight reel shot. Yeah. And it's not that bicycle kick is not an easy thing to pull off, man. I mean, that, as you know, and gutsy, courageous. I mean, if he had skewed it, they would have just said wasted opportunity. That was incredibly selfish, but he didn't. And that's what football needs. And that's again why you watch the English Premier League, say, versus the A-League. But look, Manchester United, I mean, they're not going to do much this year, are they? Chelsea are certainly not going to do much. Everybody's, I think, sitting back and waiting to see whether Manchester City get punished for their 115 charges.
Let's bloody hope so. But you know what's going to...
They should pick up 30 points. If Everton are picking up 10 points for one financial irregularity, then surely Manchester City are gone, aren't they? Which means that it'll come down to Liverpool or Arsenal. I just don't think there's anybody else really in the mix in terms of ultimately challenging for the title.
Well, what it'll come down to in the end, and this is the fear, and this is why Manchester City won't get punished, is because the Saudi owners, the sovereign fund owners, they are just waiting for a chance to create a European Super League where they can put a couple of Saudi teams in it, and that will be the excuse that they need. And this is why they're treading on tippy toes, and this is why this will be tied up in legalese for the next few years, and hopefully they will hope that it'll just subside in memories and it'll just go away, because that is where, the European League that they floated a couple of years ago, that the whole world of football said, no, yep, we don't want it. It's coming, mate. It's coming. They never cancelled it. They just shelved it.
I've got a feeling, though, didn't the British government, haven't they legislated something around that now, where that actually is not allowed to happen with the English clubs for some reason because of the impact it has on
Well, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, these people have got $500 billion sitting in a bank account, mate. Well, how do you think this is going to unfold? If they can interrupt every single domestic European league and put a World Cup in Qatar, 5,000 people die constructing the stadiums, there's no alcohol, they legislate against homosexuality, the rainbow community, they chop people's hands off in the street. Come on, man. I mean, if they can get away with that on a global scale like the FIFA World Cup, do you think they honestly care whether or not they get banned from the Premier League?
Yeah, well, look, they should be banned from the Premier League, or they should certainly lose points. As I keep saying, mate, society breaks down if you don't have a judicial system that's fair for all, that is immune of, socio-economic background, ethnicity, the rest of it. Now, that's at a macro level. At a micro level, that also needs to operate within a sporting environment, within smaller social environments. And so everyone is sitting back waiting, but everyone like you is completely cynical. I haven't spoken to anybody who genuinely believes Manchester City are going to be punished to the degree that Everton have been punished, but everybody believes they should be. And I think there'll be a lot of pressure on the EPL. I think there'll be the government looking at it too. I don't think it'll be, people will be aware of Saudi Arabia in the background, and it will become bigger than sport. It will become very much, government will start to get involved in it if they think that is in fact the reason why we're not having a level playing field. So I've got a little bit more faith in the system than possibly you do, Martin. But look, at the end of the day, mate, I just want my Liverpool team to do what they're doing. I honestly believe Liverpool would never break away and go to a Super League. I just don't think the fans would ever allow it, mate. And the one thing with English Premier League football, more so than any other competition in the world, and something New Zealand needs to learn from, every time you watch anything, it always comes back to the fan. The players always acknowledge the fans. Jurgen Klopp's always acknowledging the fans. It is all about the fan in the UK.
Devlin. I was fast to COVID. I met me missus. The Platform.